Alright guys, welcome back to part 2 of this tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to get your drums sounding from this to this. Alright, we're only going to use free plugins to get the sound that you heard. I would really recommend you go watch part 1 before you watch this video. You'll kind of get a better idea of where, how we got the sound up to here. Alright, so that being said, I'm going to link that video in the description as well. Right. Also, make sure you have a good pair of earphones or at least good near field monitors when you're listening to this. These changes are going to be really subtle and you're not going to kind of hear those changes on your phone speaker. Again, I'm using Reaper for this. You can use this. You can use any DAW for this. If you want to use the Reaper plugins that I'm using, you can just download the Reaper plugin pack. They're available for free on the Reaper website. I'll link that in the description as well. Alright, so let's get into it. Alright, alright guys, so welcome back to the second video of this. So I'm just gonna go over, like, since the last video I referenced this mix on my monitors and I made a few changes. I'll just go over the changes that I did. One was I kind of adjusted these levels to kind of it sounded what I was looking for on the monitor. So I kind of brought up the snare punch a little bit. And the other thing what I did was I brought up the attack on the kick on this one, so you get a little more punchy. And the other thing was I brought up the kick a lot on the reverb and just brought up the snare a bit. And that's it. And then this is how it sounds now. Alright, so those of you who haven't watched part 1, I'm just going to go through what we did very quickly. I would still recommend you watch part 1 before watching this one. So you aren't lost. I'll link the video down in the description. So this is what we did. This is what it sounded like. This is what our kit sounded like before we started off. Alright. Right, so we're using MT Power Drum Kit, which is a free drum software. We started off by shaping up the kick and snare using just EQ and transient, processors. These two plugins. Okay, they're both linked in the description. You can download them there. All right. So we use these plugins to kind of shape the transients of both the kick and the snare. And then they sounded like this. Then what we did is we added this snare punch. It's a parallel processing the snare. I send the snare to this track and then I just boosted the body of the snare really, ridiculously high, and I blended it into the original track using the fader. Alright, so that sounded like. Okay, then we created a drum like kind of a drum high-end bus to kind of mix in high-end with the rest of the kit. Blended this in, and this sounds okay. And then we created a drum crush bus to kind of blend in a little meat into the kit. So this is when the drum crush bus is simply a saturation, distortion, compressor, and an EQ. Alright, so this is with the drum crush, and this is how it sounds like. Then we added some reverb, blended it into the kit, and this is what that sounds like. Alright, so now in this video, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to kind of add stereo ambience to the drum mix, the whole drum mix. Okay, so right now it's pretty it's a good decent sounding mix, but it's not wide enough, right? So I'm going to show you first how to add stereo ambience, and then we're going to process the whole drum kit as a whole. So use process the drum master track and glue it all together. Alright, so the first thing what we're going to do is, again, this is another trick I learned from Kenny Joya, a really good YouTuber. He has a channel called Reaper Mania. I highly recommend it. Check it out. Alright, so he kind of explains really well how to do mid-side processing in Reaper. So I kind of took that same technique and applied it to drums, and I was really happy with the sound that I was getting. So I'm just going to show you how I do that. Alright, so first I'm going to load in track. Okay, I'm going to put it into the drum folder. Alright, I'm not going to name my track. I'm not going to name it because we're not really going to use that track. You'll see in a bit. Okay, the next thing I'm going to select all my tracks right up to crash. So I'm going to take kick, snare, hi-hat, tom, all the toms, the ride and the crash. Okay, I'm not going to take all the parallel processing tracks. Okay, I'm not going to choose those. Okay, so hold down the shift button. Okay, click on the routing and drag and send this to this track. Okay, so this should send all these tracks to the track we just created. Alright, so we're not going to name this track and leave it blank. If you want, you can name it, I guess mid-side, you could call it mid encode. Okay, you'll see why that is in a bit. Okay, actually we call this mid-side encode. Alright, so I'm going to click on my FX. I'm going to type in mid-side. Okay, so I'm going to click on the mid-side encoder. Okay, so this plugin really doesn't have any controls, but what it does is, okay, it's a really cool thing. I'm going to solo this track and you see what it does. So what it does is separates the mid channel and the stereo, the side channel into two separate this. So it's channels. So you can just listen to this. You can see all the mid channels are gone to the left and the side channels are gone to the right. So we just kind of separated this for us, right? So but this is not done here. We need to go further. We're going to create two more tracks. Okay, first I'm going to create another track, put it into the bus. I'm going to name this mid, right? Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the routing button on the mid side encode channel, click and drag and send it to this channel. Okay, then I'm going to click on audio where it says 1/2, go down to mono source and click 1. Okay, so that's going to send the mid channel into this track. And I'm going to create another track, bring this into the bus. I'm going to name that side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send the mid side encode channel, click the routing, drag, send this to this, and I'm going to click on the audio routing, click on mono source and select 2. Okay, so now what it's done is going to send these the two channels separately into these two tracks. So what I want to do is now I want to hear them only from these two tracks. I don't want to hear them on this track, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the routing here and then I'm going to uncheck pair and send. I'm just leave this box unchecked. So now what's going to do, this is only going to send to these two tracks and it's not going to send to the master track. All right, so if I solo this, you can hear this. Right, and I go to the next one, which should sound like this. All right, so this is what this sounds like. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the mixer here and I'm going to pan both these channels. I'm going to pan this one 100% to the left. That's my mid. It's going to be 100% left, and my side is going to be 100% right. All right, so now here's what we want to do. We want to add one more track. Okay, I'm going to put this into the drum bus. I'm going to call this drum stereo. All right, now what we want to do is we want to send both these, the mid and the side, into this track. So I'm going to grab the routing, click and drag, send it to this, and do the same thing for this one. Okay, now here's the thing. These two channels are being sent to this, so I only want to hear them on this track. I don't want to hear them on these tracks. So we're going to do the same thing we did for this one. That means we're going to stop them sending signal to the master pen track. So I'm going to hold on Alt on my keyboard and just click the routing button, and that's going to uncheck, and it's going to stop the audio going to the master track. So I can do it two ways. I can do it like this with this, or I can just Sorry, just click this on. Yeah, I can hold this, hold Alt, and you can see that light goes off. Right, so now that's not sending signal to the master track. It's only sending to this track. All right, so if I play this track, this is what it's going to sound like. Okay, if you listen carefully, it's still kind of the mid and the side. It's still on two separate. It's pan left, right. So you can hear that. Okay, now we want to get them back into, blend them both back into a stereo track. So I'm going to grab the effects. I'm going to click on mid-side decoder now. Okay, and add that to this track. Okay, now if I listen to it, okay, it's kind of sounding normal. Right, so what we've done now, we've kind of separated those two, the mid and the side, so we can kind of process them separately. That's why we went this roundabout kind of method of doing this. All right, so I can process them like this. If you listen carefully, so I can bring down the center, so that's only the sides. See, bring up the center and bring it down. Sorry, that was too loud. All right, so I'm going to leave this here. Okay, and I can use this to pan the center left or right. Okay, but we're not going to process this on this plugin. We're going to do it a different way. Okay, so I can do the same thing on these two, on the mid and side fader. So if listen to this, if I bring down the mid fader, see the mid is completely slow. Okay, and if I bring down the side fader, okay, it's completely mono now. Okay, bring both these up here. All right. So yes, now the thing is, I'm not really going to do much with the mid because we're getting mid from the rest of the drum bass here. We just want to add stereo to this track. So I'm going to bring this down. Okay, I'm not going to bring it all the way down if it's going to be a little bit too thin. So I'm going to bring this here, right, somewhere around here. Not really doing much. You can kind of adjust this later to according to how you want. Okay, now we're just going to process the side channel. So I'm going to open my effects window. I'm going to put down rear EQ. I'll put rear EQ on this. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to boost the top end. Okay, make this. Okay, so you got to be careful that how much you boost this, because we're already getting the top end from our drum high end bass, so we don't want to kind of overdo this here. All we want to do is kind of bring out the cymbals, and because those are the and all the frequencies that are stereo, because most of the frequencies of stereo are kind of in this area. Okay, so you can bring this up. Yes. Okay, bring this a little bit. Let's listen to, I'm going to just solo this and let's listen to this as it is. All right. Okay, so it's kind of sounding good now. Let me just bring this. Okay, now I'm gonna add in a another plugin called Rear X Comp. Okay, so this is a multi-band compressor that comes free with Reaper. Okay, so what we're going to do is we don't need this one. I'm going to select this. I'm going to delete band. We don't need that band. We just need to compress the high end. We're just going to compress this band. Okay, so it's just going to be something like here. And play this. And if you can see, this is really brightening up the. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now it's shaping up, but you know what, the frequencies sound a little bit tinny, so I'm going to add another EQ after this. Okay, so what I'm going to do here now is just cut down a little bit of this frequency here, so this should sound like, yes. Okay, you see what that's doing there. All right, so that's our side channel is processed. Now we want to look at the drum stereo bus. So what we're going to do is kind of widen this track right here, because this is the final track that we're going to blend into the drum mix. So we're going to process this one. Okay, so now let's listen to this, and this is what is finally being sent to this. You can add a little bit of mid. Yeah. Okay. Now we want to process. Process this. We're gonna just add one plugin. We're gonna add a one. Okay. Stereo control. This is by Alex Hilton. I think it's another free plugin. I'll link it in the description. Really decent plugin for adding stereo width. I'm gonna load that in. Okay. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna touch any of the other parameters here. We're just gonna touch the stereo width and put that 100% in. Okay. Now just listen to with this on. You see how it's kind of widening the whole side section. Listen to this. All right. So this is a really good plugin for this. I have another one that another free one that I use for stereo widening a lot. It's called Relay. Okay, it's by Isotope. It's another free plugin by Isotope. You get it free when you download Isotope Visual Mixer. I'll link this in the description as well. This is another decent one. It has a bunch of different features besides the stereo width. So I can just widen this. Let me just turn this off. Okay, and listen to this with this on 100%. Is it off? And this. Right? Okay. So both really good plugins. They get the job done. With the Isotope Relay, I like this section where you can kind of shift, delay the track. So if you want to kind of duplicate tracks and like get them a stereo effect, you can do this. And you have begin to mono, phase shift, swap channels. You can have a filter. So it's really good. Very nice plugin, and it's free, so you can't complain about it. And it's Isotope. All right, so let's play this. Okay, so now our drum stereo track is set up. I'm just going to drop this fader down. I'm going to unsolo that. I'm going to play this and I'm going to blend this in. So and that's kind of shaping up to sound good. I'll just play this again and then I'll mute the drum stereo track so you can hear the difference. You see how it's like really widened out our drums. Alright, so again, what I like about this technique is that it's pretty non-destructive. So, if you want to bring this up, you bring it up. If you want to bring it down, bring it down. If you want more ambience, just bring that up. If you want less ambience, bring that down. It really, widens up the track. So if you want to kind of, you want less stereo widening, I'll just play this. See it off. Very subtle stereo. If you want a more pronounced stereo, bring that up. Right. So again, you got to be a little careful when blending in stereo, because if you kind of push this a little too much, you're going to lose out the definition of the kick and the snare. You can always bump this fader up to kind of increase the mids. Then you got to be careful of clipping. So yeah, that's how we get our stereo ambience. Now, one thing you got to be careful, you got to kind of differentiate between spatial ambience and stereo ambience. Okay, so spatial ambience is your drum reverb, that's adding spatial ambience, and your drum stereo track is adding stereo ambience. All right, so I'm just gonna show you the difference between both. So this is drum stereo ambience without the stereo ambience. Okay, and I'm going to show you the drum verb, and this is without the reverb spatial ambience. See? And if you want only stereo ambience, and go together. Alright, so this is a good sound mix is really sounding decent. I'm kind of happy with it. Alright, so I'm gonna go into start processing the rest of the kit. Now, I mean, you would do the same thing for the toms. You know, you would process the toms. You could kind of EQ and kind of compress the toms, shape the toms to what sound you want. But since we don't have any toms on this track, I'm not going to go into that now. The video will just be too long. But the same process as the kick and the snare, right? Again, you can process the overheads as well, EQ, kind of, you know, EQ and this as well as the hi-hat. But again, I'm not going to do that now because that'll just take too long. All right, so let's get into the drum master. Okay. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add rear EQ. Now, when processing the master track, the drum master track, you want to process it against the rest of the other instruments in your track. For example, you want to listen to the guitars and the vocals and the bass and everything, and kind of process it like that from that perspective. Since we don't have any other instruments right now, I'm just going to give you a rough reference of what we're kind of looking for when we process the drum master track. Right, so you always want to refer to you know, the other instruments. And the other thing I like to do is refer to a really, you know, a track that, like for example, say I don't like to mix blind. I like to go into a mix blind. I always want to have a reference track where, for example, if I know of a really good track where the drums are mixed really well, I want to listen to that track, keep that track, you know, and try to get my drums close to that, you know, as possible, to the sound that I'm looking for. I don't like to get in blind. All right. Again, I didn't have time in this video to go into that concept because that's kind of a really lengthy concept in itself. Right. So I'm just going to select the band filter here. Okay. So I'm going to do is I'm going to boost a little bit here, just to make room for the kick. Boost up the kick, and I'm going to boost up the snare here. Right. Then I'm going to boost here to make this a band. Boost that to brighten up this, and do the same thing here. And then the same thing here. Yeah. Okay, so this is my drum master. This is a starting point. Like I would always reference it with my other instruments. I can make a few cuts if I need my vocals to cut through, or I need guitars to cut through. I can make a few cuts here and there. Or I could kind of, you know, if I found this is not going to boost this here and there, you know, just kind of adding a little bit of this. I'm going to play this with the EQ. Very subtle difference. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress the drum bass. I'm going to add in rear comp. Okay, so what we're going to do is the compressor is going to just, we don't want to kind of we don't want to overdo the compression because everything is kind of pretty sounding. We just want to glue it all together. So I'm going to add really minimum compression. I have a drum master compress preset that I use. So this is kind of a slow attack, like medium slow attack, to kind of let the transients pass through. A kind of quick release to kind of, so it's not, you know, compressing that too much. I got a ratio 2:1, and I just play around my threshold to find the, yeah. Right, so what this is doing, I'm just going to compress just the, you know, the snare and that really loud section of the snare, just to kind of glue that in the rest of the track. All right, and this is kind of a pretty, I think a pretty decent drum master mix. Let's listen to that again without. And yeah, now one more thing you can add. Now this is optional. If you find that you want a little more volume on your drums and you don't want to clip the master, you just add a limiter. Right now, this is not something I would recommend. Um, the thing is, what happens with the limiter? You got to be really careful when using it, especially if you're playing, even if you're mixing a live recorded drum kit, because you're going to lose a lot of the dynamics. You're going to lose, especially ghost notes and stuff like that. You're going to lose a lot of the dynamics, so you don't want to do that. So what you want to do is, I'm going to play this. I'll show you how you can use this. So all you leave everything the way it is. All you're going to touch is this threshold knob. Okay. Okay. By the way, I pulled in Event Horizon Limiter Clipper from the Reaper plugins. I'm going to play the track. I'm going to gradually bring this down to how loud I want the drums to be. So, and that's it. It's starting to sound, I think it's sounding pretty decent right there. Again, you don't need to add this. You can always, you don't really need to add this. If you find that your mix is kind of low, if you compared to the rest of your tracks, you want to bump up the volume, and then you use this. All right. Finally, now since we put everything in the drum master folder here, so all our tracks are here. I don't need to touch. Once my mix is done, I don't really need to kind of get into any of this. All I do is kind of start, when I'm blending it into the rest of my instruments, I kind of use this knob. So for example, this will act like a master volume control. So yeah, see, you can blend this in. Alright guys, so I'm going to show you what we started off with today. So we started off with like this. Okay, and we turned our tracks, the drum mix, into this. Alright, so what we started off in the first video was, what we started off with was this. Yep. And we brought that to this. Alright, let's play that again. Alright, so that's our drum mix. Now again, this is not this is just my method of how I mix drums. I'm sure there are much better techniques out there. I just find that this works for me. I like the way this is this is non-destructive. Again, I would really reference your tracks, always reference your tracks, and mix with your ears, not the eyes. Make sure that whatever you're mixing sounds good. And you got to remember, there aren't any rules. Whatever, if it sounds good, go ahead, man. If you'll hear people say, dude, never throw maybe never kind of throw a limiter on a drum kit. But if it sounds good, if it works, why not? Go ahead. I would like to recommend a bunch of sound engineers that I look up to. I mean, there's obviously Kenny Joya from Reaper Mania, who's I really kind of I love the way he approaches his mixing. Then there's Sylvia Massey, my bad. Sylvia Massey from I think Studio Divine. She has her own studio. She's mixed for System of a Down, Prince, Johnny Cash, and lots of the big names out there. I think even Queens of the Stone Age and stuff. And she kind of has really some really nice recording, tips and tricks. Um, Steven Slate is another good sound engineer. And yeah, so again, I hope you guys learned something from this. I hope this was helpful. Let me know if this helps. I'll see if I can make a bunch of more videos on processing guitars and stuff. How just my take on how I go about doing my mix. Yeah. So again, hope you guys enjoyed this. You learned a lot, and see you next time.